everyone and Assalamualaikum. We are back again in another video of EMG 3007. My name is Diana Kisna binti Hodolu Shukri and my metric number is 191672. And today I'm going to share with you guys about my FYP, Residence Knowledge and Practices towards Environmental Project on Solid Waste Management in Kuala Lumpur.
Thank you to the person that also involved in this project, Mr. Sabrina J. Abdullah and Mr. Amir Hamzah Sharai. We are from Department of Environment, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, University Putra Malaysia. Today's content that we are going to share is starting with introduction, which consists of problem statement, research objectives, research question, next followed by literature review, beginning of flow diagram, followed by methodology, consists of sampling technique and data analysis, next is results and discussion, followed by conclusion, and last but not least is reference.
Now, let's start with introduction.
Solid waste defined as refuse sludge from wastewater treatment plants, water supply treatment, or air pollution control facility, and other discarded materials. Nearly everything we do behind is known as some kind of waste. Solid waste is any material that is thrown away, disposed, burned, incinerated, or being recycled. In the situation of inherently waste, whereas some materials pose such a threat to human health and the environment.
Problem statement. There are 4 problem statements that we stand on. The overall problem statement state about solid waste management are being an issue nowadays due to unwisely managing of it. Due to lack of knowledge and practices, educational institutions need to increase their efforts to educate society for a sustainable future. Sub-problem number 1. Related organizations are most influential in educating society in protecting and conserving the environment. Environmental knowledge and attitudes is a must due to have knowledgeable societies. Sub-problem number 2. By improving knowledge, instilling values, fostering beliefs, and shifting attitudes, reconsider environmentally harmful lifestyles and behavior. Studies shown the higher a person's level of education and experience, the more likely they has expressed concern to the environment. Sub-problem number 3. People with more education tend to be more concerned about the environment, also to engage in actions that promote and support political decisions that protect the environment. Next is research objectives and research questions. There are 2 RO and RQ that involved in this study.
First objective is to assess the residents' knowledge towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur, and the research question is what is level of residents' knowledge towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur. Second objective is to assess the residents' practices towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur, and the research question is what is level of residents' practices towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur.
Now, let's go through to literature review. As we can see on the flowchart diagram, it is divided into 4 sections which are included: eligibility, screening, and identification. The flowchart starting with records identified through database searching, where the number of literature review is 67, and additional records identified through other sources, where the number of literature review is 5. Next, the number of literature review increased into 72 after records after duplicates removed. Next, after record screening, the number of literature review decreased to 69. Another 3 literature review being excluded by the records. Next, the literature review consists of 58, where the full text articles assessed for eligibility, and the number of literature review that didn't involve are 11, where it is full text articles excluded with reasons. The remaining literature review are with 53 in number, where studies included in qualitative synthesis, and finally, after the filtration, the literature review remain as 42, where studies included in quantitative synthesis meta-analysis. Now, let's go through to the excerpts of literature review. Starting with solid waste management, Malaysia becomes among the higher waste generation, covering from community activities like commercial, institutional, industrial, and markets. Second is environmental programs, where to identify the correlation between the community participation in recycling programs with their knowledge and attitude on solid waste segregation. Third is knowledge, where the amount of waste generated in educational institutions was influenced by the educational institution's type. Fourth is awareness, where 84% of consumers express aware on environmental issues and are changing some of their buying patterns due to their awareness. And fifth, practices, where improving residents' awareness on solid waste sources separation and recycling will promote more effective public campaigns and behavior-changing interventions. Now, let's move on to methodology.
For the methodology, we starting with questionnaire development. For the types of question used, there are 3 types of questions. But the types of question used that we use are structured questions and scale questions. While for the format in questionnaires, there are 4 formats in questionnaires, but the one that we use are closed-ended formats. There are 7 elements that consist in closed-ended format, but the one that relate in this study is linked questions. Next, we jump to develop items, where items they need to develop when creating the questionnaire. First, starting with research objective, followed by complete and accurate, next is simplicity, and lastly is arrangement. To have a good design of questionnaire, there are 9 elements of preliminary decision that need to be followed. Starting with decide information required, define target respondents, choose method of reaching target respondents, decide questions content, develop question wording, put questions into meaningful order and format, check questions length, pre-test questionnaires, and last but not least, develop final survey form.
As we can see here is one of the way of research approach where it is used by questionnaire. As everyone can see, this is a sample of questionnaire in section B. Next is a research instrument regarding on validity. There are various types of validity. First is criterion validity. Second, construct validity. Third, content validity. And fourth is phase validity. The validity is chosen that the most suitable in this study is content validity. As been shown here is an example of validation form that will be given to the validators. The validation form will be given marks based on the relevance of the question that we prepare in the questionnaire.
As been shown in the slide, the validation score has been taken from 1 to 4, as 4 is the most relevant question and 1 is the least relevant. The instructions and title of every section for the questionnaire must be stated clearly.
As been shown here is an example of validation scores that has been validated by the validator.
Based on the scores of ICDI, most of the questions gain 0.78 and above means the question is valid and does not need to be changed, while other questions that gain below 0.78 need to be adjusted or changed with different pattern of questions. Meanwhile, for the SCBI, Section A and Section B is valid since both of the sections gain scores above 0.8, while Section C gain lower 0.8 that proves as Section C needs to be done an adjustment.
Next is research instrument that have been gained from pilot tests, and this has been shown is a sample of reliability scores that using Cronbach's alpha. Next is sampling techniques. There are a lot of sampling techniques that require in quantitative. The sampling technique used in this study is random sampling technique. Each individual is chosen by chance and has an equal chance of being selected. Each individual is given in a population a number, then use a table of random numbers to decide which individuals to include. This technique allows the sampling error to be calculated and reduce selection bias. A specific advantage is that it is the most straightforward method of probability sampling.
The number of sampling being chosen in 1.8 million residents of Kuala Lumpur is about 385 respondents, as their characteristic is either ever joined the environmental program or not. These numbers of sampling have been received by using Quincy-Morgan method. Now let's take a look at sampling formula. The one is shown on the video is 2 types of the different way of calculating the sampling formula by using Quincy-Morgan formula.
Now, we move on to data analysis. The data analysis is starting with inferential statistic that consists of two types, which are Kolmogorov-Smirnov and Shapiro-Wilk. Since this study is less than 1,000 respondents, so it is chosen to use Shapiro-Wilk, and the test being done either to check it is significance or not significance. This test is called as normality test. If the study is normal, then it will use non-parametric, and we can check either if we want to use correlation or difference. If using correlation, we must use Spearman method. If we want to check difference, we can use Mann-Whitney or Kruskal-Wallis. If the study is not normal, then we use parametric. Same goes to the non-parametric, we can check either using correlation and difference. If we study using correlation, we can use Pearson's. While if we use to study difference, we can use either t-test or ANOVA.
The data analysis is starting with showing the section A regarding on socio-demographic. As being shown here is the 6 questions that relate in this study. As can be seen from the section A result, what can be simplified is most of the respondents are from the female, which consists of 174 respondents from 385. Most of the respondents are from the ages 18 until 34. The majority are from Malay races. Single marital status consists of 175 respondents. The educational background from the one that have a bachelor's degree, and the one that most answered these respondents are from the students. Next is the section B in this study's questionnaire regarding on residents' knowledge towards environmental programs on solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur. As can be seen in shown here, is a question from question 1 until question 4 in section B. These questions are regarding on environmental day of knowledge from the respondents. Next is the continuous question in section B from question 5 until question 11. This is a closed-ended question and the answering is just within yes and no. What can be summarized from this section B question is most of the respondents have a high knowledge in solid waste management, as most of the respondents are answering yes regarding on the knowledge of solid waste management. Finally, is the questions of the questionnaires in section C regarding on residents' practices towards environmental programs on solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur. The questions shown here are from question 1, question 4, question 5, question 6, and question 9. These questions being compiled together to show that the questions that have the most practices by the respondents, followed by the remaining questions from the section C, where consists of question 2, question 3, question 7, question 8, and question 10. These questions being compiled together to show that the questions that have the least practices by the respondents. Next is hypothesis. There is 2 hypotheses stated in this study. The H0 is there is no significant difference between male and female knowledge and practices towards solid waste management, while the HA is there is significant difference between male and female knowledge and practices towards solid waste management. Based on results obtained using Mann-Whitney method, it is shown that there is no significant difference perception between male residents and female residents towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur. As for the conclusion, based on the objectives as to assess the residents' knowledge and practices towards solid waste management in Kuala Lumpur, can be found that most of the residents are high in knowledge, however, they are lacking in practices. Therefore, it is recommended to have more awareness programs to encourage people on practicing the right management on handling solid waste. Moreover, the 7R are really recommended to the respondents and residents, which are rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, recycle, and last but not least is rot. These are the references that have been used along this study on making this video.
That is all for today. For another video from EMG 3007, see you next soon. Thank you.